Hi, welcome to the Art Center of Coastal Carolina. I'm Nicole Nelson. I'm the current Scenic charge artist, and I will be leading your video tutorial on how to apply wallpaper. All right, let's get to the materials list that you're gonna need to do this whole thing. You'll need a roller cage, a tray, a ladle, chip brush, wallpaper paste. And this guy, you need to do a little bit of research, and if you're using a heavy wallpaper covering that has a lot of weight to it, like vinyl, you're gonna need to buy a stronger paste. Also, make sure you get enough to cover your project. A gallon of this covers about 300 square feet. Your wallpaper of choice, and we have this lovely floral paisley print for the day. Straight edge. And you probably want to get metal because sometimes if you get wood or plastic, whatever you're using to cut with will actually slice into the ruler and it will no longer be straight. Pro tip, I like to use a speed square to ensure that everything is a straight cut, a matte knife, and then finally, depending on what kind of wallpaper you're using, either a wallpaper brush or a little pusher thing. Surface prep is what you do before you do any kind of wallpaper or anything. And it's paying attention to the surface of whatever you're gonna apply it on. So that's making sure everything is smooth up and down. There aren't any rivets or anything in it that need to be sanded. Any kind of little flaw in the wall is really gonna read in the wallpaper itself, whether it's a pucker from where a screw's been pulled up and you didn't sand it down, or whether it's a discrepancy in the layer of paint. If you are applying to something that is raw, I very much recommend that you prime it with anything before you go to put wallpaper on it, because a raw surface that is just plain wood will just suck in the glue. And all that will accomplish then is you applying this wallpaper and then it eventually falling down within a couple of days because it didn't have the necessary amount of glue to attach and adhere the wallpaper to the wall itself. Mostly because the wood went and absorbed it. All right, let's get to the application process. First, take your wallpaper paste, scoop out a big chunk into your tray, and then make sure you get it on your roller nice and evenly. You want to apply the paste thickly but evenly over the whole thing. If you're using a thinner wall covering where the paste is likely to soak through, then you definitely want to go with a thinner layer. But normal wallpaper, or if you're using a heavy wallpaper, you really do want to go with a thicker layer. I will typically take my wallpaper and figure out where the end needs to go, and I will put a little bit of paste over the edge so that when I go to push down, that edge is gripped. You can also get some specialty seam glue that comes in a little push pouch. And you can also use that to help with your edges because that's where you're gonna get the most peeling. All right, now that you've got the paste all evenly distributed across your wall or whatever you're working on, now it's time to take your wallpaper and apply. I recommend starting at the top of the wall if you're doing this on a wall and matching the edges as best you can with it. Because I'm doing this on a board, it's more critical that I align it because the top is not square with the side of the board itself. And as you can see, you can actually move the wallpaper around after you've situated it. So you can maneuver it a lot easier. It isn't just a like one and done shot kind of thing. You do have to be conscious of how much time it does take to cure. But for the most part, you've got about half an hour of wiggle room. And now that I've aligned it with the correct edge, I can pull taut and start smoothing. Now, I personally prefer using the wallpaper brush as opposed to the pusher, because the pusher sometimes will leave little indentations on the paper itself and then create a texture that was never really meant to be there. And so now you go to pushing the wallpaper down. And this part is really critical so that you get all of the air bubbles out. That will give it away that it's wallpaper. Now that it's all pretty and straight, I'm going to explain to you what a repeat is and how to seam this section over here. A repeat is when the pattern on the paper repeats itself naturally in terms of how the paper is designed. So right now, with where the seam is, the repeat would be right there. And that's where you start the new section of paper. And now if you end up, like most of the time I do, and end up with a little bit of dollop of glue on top of the seam, that's when you take a nice damp rag and you take it across that seam. Now that you've gotten your seaming correct and figured out, this is normally when, if I were working on a wall, I would use a marker to mark where my top edge of the wall hits on the paper. I'd pull it off, and then I would cut using my straight edge and my square along the paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for you. So now that I've got the paper lined up across my cutting board, I'm gonna take my square and my mat knife, and I'm gonna make sure the ruler is to this side of the line because this is the seamed edge of the paper. Now I'm gonna align the square with the bottom edge of my paper, which ensures that this ruler, when it butts up against it, is square. This ensures that this ruler is perpendicular, which means that when you go ahead and cut this, if you're off at all, it will be by very little. All right, now I'm gonna repeat the process. Now to seam. Sometimes you'll have to reapply the glue. Sometimes, like right now, it's still there and active. We're at the point where we pick up our wallpaper brush and we smooth down, getting out any kind of air bubbles. And this will give you a very pretty, properly applied wallpaper. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Art Center of Coastal Carolina. Once again, my name is Nichole Nelson. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and smash that bell. Have a great day.